All right, we're going to reconvene the regular agenda for Monday, July 21st, at 7 p.m., and it is reconvened at 6:37 p.m. on the 22nd. We still have all the same members here. For those of you in the audience, there was a decision made last night to recess last night's meeting so that everyone could be here. Unfortunately, there was a family event. We do not have everyone here, but we are going to continue the discussion. I think the best move here is we're going to move back to item G, citizen comments. Does anyone like to address the audience? Mr. Peterson.
I'm Dennis Peterson, 16522 Cornwall Street. I appreciate the accommodation, Mr. Mayor. I know this is a little screwy on how things are going with these two meetings, and my comments are related not necessarily to the J4 pool, but to the city campus. And so if I could address that. I was opposed to the COs and thought that it should be a citizen vote, and was a signer of the petition that was successful in doing such. But let me start on a more broad basis, and the punchline of the whole thing is I think that a $24 million renovation for the city campus is a waste of taxpayers' money and a prime example of kingdom building. You know, we need efficient city offices, but we don't need this. And what I'm talking about is this was the layouts that were attached to tonight's supposed 6:30 agenda. So let me talk a little bit about the incentives as how we go forward. I'm sure many of you will dismiss my comments as one of those raving lifers, and I am. And for those of you not familiar, lifer is one of us people that have been here for a long time, decades, pretty fiscally conservative, raised our kids here, and decided to stay because we liked it. And so, but it's used in a different context in many of the discussions now. So for those of you who know what I'm talking about, I am a lifer. But let me assure you, my comments are based on something more than that. It's 40 years in the architectural and engineering profession, and it's pretty obvious to see some of these things as we move forward. You know, let's talk about incentives. You know, first the incentive is the architects being paid 7% of construction cost as a base fee. Do you think they're going to focus on cost cutting and efficiency when they're getting a percentage of the construction? Especially after staff gives them cover by providing a $17 million construction cost estimate in advance. So, having served many years in that industry, I'd be happy to take an open-end contract at 7% construction with no responsibility for cost. Second incentive, staff gets to dictate their own spaces. Are they considering established government standards or their own kingdom building? You know, what the heck, it's not their money. Also, I didn't realize that we had such a cadre of high-level executives employed by the city. So if you look at the standards of the General Services Administration, which are the federal standards, and the Texas Facilities Commission, which are the standards for the Texas facilities, almost all the proposed offices would be considered executive offices. For example, our Parks and Rec manager, 220 square feet. That's 15 by 15 foot. For comparison, I challenge you to go home and measure your living room and see if it's larger or smaller than that. That's a lot of space. Recreational administrative assistant, 200 square feet. Event coordinator, 200 square feet. Community development manager, 242 square feet. Finance director, 255 square feet. Accounting manager, 202 square feet. IT director, 250 square feet. I had people that, managed 1,000 people that didn't have offices that size. It's absolutely ridiculous what the offices are included in the plans. The third incentive, the public wish list is constantly thrown up as justification. Well, guess what? If you ask me what I want and I'm spending somebody else's money, it's not surprising what you get. You get things like $10 million pools, you get things like $9 million ball fields, and you get $24 million city complexes. For one thing, there's 6 classrooms in there that you're proposing at 540 square feet, which is crazy. Plus, there's internal training rooms like the one for rec and others. We don't need this much space. Apparently, the golf course event center is booked solid, or else, we wouldn't need some of these spaces. But I find that hard to believe. It appears to me that we're expanding into the space available and using huge offices and a community wish list for justification. Here's a radical thought. Let's build out what we need, throw in 10% for expansion, and delay the remainder for a future build-out. Also, the scare tactic in the agenda about costing $70,000 to $100,000 more per month for a delay is total BS. We should take a couple months to correctly program the space and save $10 million, not spend $100,000.
That's 5, Dennis.
What's that?
That's 5, Mr. Peterson.
Okay, thank you.
Kimberly or Sarah, do either one of y'all have? Okay.
So right before I left the house, I was watching the February 2018 City Council meeting, and thank you to former Mayor Bobby Warren for having all of these broadcasts, because I've had it's my 3rd time watching all of them. So anyways, during that talk, the golf course clubhouse was being discussed on how to do the renovation and for weddings and parties and upcoming dueling piano adventures in November. When I started researching Jersey Village history, because we bought Clark Henry's first son's house, didn't know anything about JV or the Henry family or what Jersey Cows were. But it's like I fell down the rabbit hole researching this family and this 3 square acres. But it's been very interesting, understanding the history of this little town that everyone claims to love and wants to preserve. But it's like going back to the heart of it. It's Clark and Bessie Henry's Jersey ranch. And when that was no longer working out in the early 1948, when he had the ranch open for 10 years. And then they moved to Colorado, and then they moved back here and started expanding out for the residential lots and everything with Leroy Kennedy. And as they did that, they were building out the golf course, and for that building, for the golf club building, which I was really happy that it was repurposed into the convention hall, not just torn down. And when I came upon for the Jersey Village Baptist Church history workbooks and everything with actual articles from the newspapers and all of that from way back then, I just wanted to read a few little excerpts from my talk that I had this past March, that the Baptist Church for Jersey Village was first born as an idea of community members on April 28th, 1955. It was a unanimous decision to construct a church facility amongst all the initial folks. Clark Henry and Leroy Kennedy stated they would donate a church site of adequate proportion in Jersey Village. They would also donate a lakeside lot as a site for the church pastorium, which I did find out which house that is. Decided upon and adopted the name Jersey Village Baptist Church with the first service on Sunday, May 1st, 1955. On June 30th, they had 42 members, charter members, and then the overall church membership quickly grew to 96. The local paper then had the church location as the Old F&M Dairy on Hempstead Road, with letterhead dated on August 15th, 1956, from First Baptist Church, Jersey Village, Route 9, Box 770, announcing a event to gather on the church site for a formal groundbreaking service of our chapel and educational building. And I also found photographs of that event as well. Brown and Root was heavily involved in the construction. That's with Mr. George Brown and Mr. Herman Brown as backup people if anything ever happened to like the supervisor for the build out. The congregation met for 19 months at the Jersey Village Development Corporation offices, which I think is right on the corner over here. And many of the charter members went on to serve Jersey Village in other capacities, such as Mr. Hardelik as one of the first councilmen when it was incorporated as a city. So my main point is to not forget the actual past of Jersey Village as we march into the future, which my husband and I fully support, and we're very happy about the golf course and its awesomeness with the restaurant and everything, and the build-outs of, other local businesses. But it's like keeping in mind that this still was Clark Henry's land and his dairy farm, and to don't forget about that and all these first accomplishments that he started out, because he could have just easily sold this off, or it could have been annexed by Houston, which was the intent which ignited for the incorporation. So we could be our own city. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask, we had a discussion about the pool, and then we need to discuss the city campus and the GOs. So is there a topic?
I'm sorry, I missed the GO what?
COs.
Oh,
any
COs.
kind of bonding.
Okay.
Is there one of these topics that we should address first? Do we want to go back and finish the pool discussion?
Wait, let me go back to my last stuff. Today's meeting?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Wait, are you asking if we need to talk about it?
He's asking which topic do we want to discuss first? Should we start with the pool? Should we start with city campus? How do we want to do this?
Would it make so? Generally speaking, we're talking about the possibility, in light of the petitions and the COs, of doing general obligation bonds for 3 different projects: water, sewer, city campus, and what's the third one? Oh, the pool. Thank you. And we don't know necessarily what the pool amount would be. The COs had an amount for the city campus, and then, of course, the water, sewer, we think would remain the same. It seems to me like the city campus is a significant issue. And, of course, on the agenda is the question about from the city manager with respect to them potentially want to change some of the configuration of the proposed option A. James, I know that you've said before that there were aspects of option A that you disagreed with. As y'all may or may not realize, I have real questions, just as the gentleman who spoke at the beginning of the meeting, about the scope of the city campus and even the general intent to remodel those buildings given the acquisition cost and the proposed construction cost. I think at this juncture for Jersey Village, it's far too much money, far too big a project. While everyone would like a city campus and a rec center and a pickleball court and a classrooms and sewing rooms and this, that, and the other community meeting space, we seem to be ignoring the question, what is a community appropriate for the community and what is good value for money spent? And so, in my opinion, I think we need to first talk about the city campus, the actual scope of the city campus project.
All right, we're going to move to agenda item J2, and I'm going to pass over to Austin Blees to present some of the newer information about the city campus that was provided and to lay out that discussion.
Yeah, so one of the big pieces of feedback we've heard, not just on this project, but I would say probably consistently for years, is the civic groups want space to meet, whether that's JVSO, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, all the clubs that you talked about there. There's not a lot of space for these groups to meet. We do have the convention center over the clubhouse, but that main purpose is to make money, not give away that space to be used by all those different clubs. So with this, we've got an option to add a few more classrooms to the city campus. If we move dispatch over into the administration building, we can add another 2 classrooms to that civic center building, whatever you want to call it, and probably add you got to have 5 classrooms total of about 550 square feet, and you could have another 1 or 2 of 300 square feet for smaller groups. So that was the proposal here tonight that we're going to move forward with to modify that scope a little bit. The question comes down. The other question in the agenda packet was, do we want to continue to move forward with the schematic design and incur those costs and pay for those costs as we go, not knowing what's going to happen at the ballot box in November, or do we want to pause that process until we know what happens in November?
Okay, so council previously voted on option A. This is the option the designers have been moving towards. Let's center our discussion around, is this something that we want to change, or is this what we want to keep moving forward with?
I would definitely be in favor of changing our approach to the city, the need for a new city hall, which does not entail a city campus. And just to make clear, while council previously did vote for option A, that was before I was on council.
Well, we all, be honest, we all speak to different groups here, okay? And we received a very heartfelt email from the president of the JVSO. Did you receive that? I have to take that into consideration as well. While I see where you're coming from, and I do agree, what was written in here, let me just take an excerpt. Sorry, I get very nervous when I have to read out loud. She had some points, but number 2 was request for continued and considered use of city facilities. Earlier this year, Carrie Lawrence and I met with Austin, and we're grateful for the offer to use the room and hold in the old church complex. That space has been a lifeline. If you visit our calendar at jvso.org, you'll see we use both this location and the Civic Center multiple times per week, thank you, to meet our program needs. Unfortunately, the golf course is no longer an ideal meeting location for us post-renovation. For various reasons, it has become challenging to gather there as we once did. This space at the City Hall campus has helped fill that gap, and it came at exactly the right time. Please note that some of our members do meet monthly at Little Meadows for dinner. In addition to the city facilities, we support local businesses regularly. Every Friday, 20 to 30 members gather for breakfast at Little Kitchen, Texas. We rotate monthly happy hours among Little Meadows, Adriatic, the brewery, and Los Cucos, again, with at least 25 people or more. The brewery also hosts the Brojex group. But while these spaces are wonderful for socializing, they're not suited to hold structured programs, making access to civic meeting spaces absolutely essential. To put our activity in perspective, according to our most recent 2024 annual grant report, 332 programs offered, 4,594 participants, 8,801 hours of engagement, 1,763 volunteer hours reported. I say this because with the number of people in this group, so currently we have 250 members across 170 households. They've been in JV a long time too. So that group, I also think for that group, that's not putting into account that we have the Girl Scouts and the Boy Scouts who also use this space. And I think there's a sewing group. So that could be my conflict. That's my conflict. Is that these are people too. These are very important people too, and so I want everyone in our community to feel like we're doing that. We're representing them. So these people are important to me too.
And if I can respond to you, Connie, I hear what you're saying, and I think, of all the organizations, the Girl Scouts, the Boy Scouts, the JVSO in particular, and I've spoken to Carrie and I've spoken to Joe, and I had dinner the other night with 2 members of JVSO. And while they're appreciative of the opportunity to meet, and I understand why they would say, well, gosh, it's nice, to be able to get up there and meet, and I do believe the city should facilitate, to the extent that it can, allowing people to meet, allowing community groups to meet without necessarily, and I guess you've got to look at this, but without necessarily having to incur a cost. I know that right now the JVSO is allowed to use parts of that building without a cost. But the point being is that while we want to provide a place for those important community groups, members of that group have also said to me, this is an outrageous amount of money, $24 million. And as the gentleman said who was speaking earlier, it's kind of the problem with the mentality of talking to people about what do you want in your community? Do you want a walking trail? Yeah, I'd love a walking trail. Would you like a bike path? Yes. Would you like a swimming pool that also had a rock climbing wall? Yes, I'd like all these things. Oh, you know what? We can do all of that, but we're also going to raise your taxes. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Don't want that. Oh, we can do all of that, but we're going to have to borrow a boatload of money. Whoa, 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 don't want to do that. So we've got to balance. We've got to balance serving the community with building things that are realistic and community appropriate. And I use that word because, we are not a River Oaks. We don't have, 2,200 homes that all have an appraised value excess of $1 million. We have to live within our means. I want to ask something of Austin, and this is a concern. I know that JVSO met regularly at the old golf course clubhouse, and they got a lot of use out of it. They had a lot of meetings there before the new clubhouse was built. I also know that that convention center, when I was at the Golf Course Advisory Committee the other day, I think the convention center year to date had generated $30,000. So it seems to me the convention center is not being used all the time. And my question is, why would community groups like JVSO, why would we prevent them from using a facility when it's not being used? What's the impediment there, or what can we do to provide between the Golf Course Convention Center when it's not being used, or the Civic Center when it's not being used, or the executive conference room back here, or the conference room there? Why can we not provide groups the opportunity to use that, or what can we do to work towards that?
Right. A lot of these rooms are booked quite frequently, especially this building, the Civic Center, the meeting room. A lot of groups use them a lot. With the convention center, we have tournaments that use the convention center space, and that impacts a lot of the opportunities. A lot of their programs are during the day when you're going to have golf tournaments and those types of things there as well. So it becomes a scheduling thing when we need to use the convention centers, when a lot of those groups would want to use it as well. And allowing groups like Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts to use the convention center is not the best idea. You want to have people that are going to respect the space better than some of those younger kids might. So making sure that you're getting appropriate things in there is also a big thing.
If a group like JVSO uses the convention center, are they tied to purchasing food and beverage from the existing vendor?
If they're going to have food and beverage there, they can purchase from that vendor, or they can go to a different caterer and pay a fee instead if that caterer is going to be using the facilities.
And could that rule in any way be modified so that they can, because they don't necessarily want to have a meeting, and this is speculation on my part, but I assume they don't want to, every time they have a meeting together, all be obligated to pay $25 a head for, the existing vendor to provide food.
They don't have to have food if they're using that space, but if they have food, they need to use either the vendor or pay the caterer that they brought in would have to pay a fee.
And my question is, can that rule be modified?
It could be modified,
Okay.
but I don't know that that's in the best business interest of the golf course.
I'm sorry?
I don't know if that would be in the best interest of the golf course.
Well, and I understand that. That's a fair statement. But what I'm saying is, if the golf course is not running a tournament, if the JVSO wants to have a meeting and they don't want to incur, if they have food at their meeting and they don't want to incur a big cost, could we do some things to accommodate it? Same thing like on the Civic Center here, and I know that you have court, as you said, X number of times a month. You've got city council meetings, but it seems like there's a lot of time when this space would be available. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, they use this space quite frequently. There's different groups that are in and out of this Civic Center multiple times a day.
And when JVSO uses it, is there a charge for them using the space?
No.
Okay. Well, the point of all that being that I think that we could, to address your concerns, Connie, I think that we can accommodate and work more to accommodate JVSO, but I don't think the answer is necessarily build out city campus to the tune of $24 million because the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, et cetera, need a community meeting room. I think there are other opportunities. I know that the Baptist Church, the Scouts used to meet there, some time ago. I don't know if they
stopped
still do.
renting their space out to any organization. They don't let any organization into their building anymore. Same thing with the Foundry, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's happening across the globe, or across the nation.
What's that?
That's happening across the nation, is most of the churches are no longer allowing those types of organizations in.
Interesting.
Several of the local ones have pretty much said they won't allow any outside at all.
Well, okay, so to not take too much time, but I and what you're saying, the importance of allowing a community gathering space. And I do think that we have opportunities to address that. And there may be something within the context of what we do decide with respect to that property or the new city hall or whatever to address those concerns. But that alone is, given the cost of the proposed city campus, that alone is not a compelling reason to move forward on it, in my opinion.
Okay. The other thing I would like to clarify is I think $24 million is a lot of money. I think it's quite a bit, and I am not happy about that dollar. So what my plan was to come here, if we proposed anything, was to lower that number anyway. So I take that group into consideration. The other thing I'm also taking into consideration is that we'll be moving that public works over from, I guess it's south side of
Taylor.
Taylor, okay. So we're moving that group over. And I lost my train of thought because I was trying to remember the name of the street. Hold on, I wrote it down. I wrote down some points. Hold on a second. Because it wasn't just them, but that's really tugging at me. The cost. Okay. The municipal court and those public works. So I can get on what you're saying. I can come to your side of it. And the other thing is just that this need has been going on for a really long time, before, heck, I think even before a mayor was born. So it's just time to do something. So here's the thing. Maybe we do it in pieces. That's fine. I'm willing to get on that train with you. What I don't want to see, or what I really am worried about, is we say we'll do it in pieces, and then some council in the future says, you know what, we really don't need X, Y, Z, and then it just gets bumped and bumped and bumped, like our facilities, like our pipes, like all of our. That's what I'm concerned about.
And let me say something in response to that. And you know, the primary purpose here is that's gone on for so long, that is so long overdue, is the fact that the existing city hall is in dilapidated condition and it needs to be torn down. It cannot be remodeled. It cannot be fixed. We need a new city hall. And I understand and I hear the arguments that people have made, and they've made it time and time again. Well, we've needed it for 40 years, and the voters voted it down at some point, and then this, that, and the other. But I would also remind council that for the last at least 7 to 8 to 9 years, one of the reasons we have not demoed this city hall and built a new one is because council, not necessarily y'all, but council, was pursuing development, Village Center, the Highway 290 project. And in conjunction with that, paid a architect $400,000 for a design of a city hall that was never built. And so, you know, to say, well, the voters have wanted it and we've delayed, so we've got to act now, I disagree with that. Council as a body, not necessarily any one of us individually, has to suffer the consequences of prior decisions. I can remember back 7 years ago thinking, City Hall is terrible. 7 years ago, 2018, City Hall is terrible. Why don't we get the people in City Hall, go put them in some temporary office space for 8 or 10 months or 12 months, demo the existing City Hall, and rebuild a City Hall there in the very spot next door? A very viable plan. And but you know that we were too busy chasing 290 Village Center. Okay, so that never happened. To me, there are other viable plans that sit here today. We weren't looking, the city was not actively looking for a property to purchase to do an extensive remodel on to have City Hall. When the church came forward and said, we're about to sell this property, the city said, oh, wow, that's right on our doorstep. That could be a good place for City Hall. Look at that big parcel of land. We could do different things with it. I understand that. Sorry about that. I understand that, but at the same time, had it not been sold, I don't think the city would have said, well, let's go buy a tract of land. I think the city probably would have reverted back to, we need to demo this and we need to rebuild. And I think that there are options available here. There are options within Jersey Village. There are buildings. There's a 23,000 square foot building in Jersey Village that's only 8 years old that's for sale. There are possibilities where we could take 25 staff members in City Hall and relocate them somewhere while we demo this property and build a community-appropriate City Hall. And that community-appropriate City Hall, as new construction, could have some classroom space. The point being, we've got too big a parcel of land over there, and we've essentially, staff has come to council and said, we can fill every building. We can fill voids between buildings. We can make a lobby space. We can make secure areas. We can make community areas. We can have a rec center. All these things are wonderful ideas, but they're all terribly expensive. I was talking to the mayor of Richardson, which is the town I grew up in, about the pools there and the rec center, because I used to go to the rec center as a kid. And you know what the rec center needs? It needs people working there every hour that it's open, there's a cost associated with it. In our budget meeting, we talked about, well, now instead of having 50,000 square feet of space, we've got 100,000. So what do we need? We need another person as a maintenance person, another janitor person. That's another $120,000 on the budget. These are all expenses that this city cannot afford. We need to rethink what we're doing, and rethinking what we're doing, I would hope that you would all be at least open to the idea, you know what, maybe what we need to do is put these workers in some temporary space, think about demoing and rebuilding City Hall exactly where it is, think about putting that space on the market and getting that money out and using it to pay for the new City Hall. These are ideas which I think would fly.
Are you saying sell the church?
Okay.
I'm saying that's a possibility, yeah.
Okay.
The pursuit across the freeway was to generate some income other than the existing property tax. But you and Connie have both had a chance to talk. My understanding of your position, you would like to go basically back to the drawing board, start over, and look at all the options again.
Correct.
Connie, you've talked, you have concerns about the dollar amount. You would like to look at maybe some options of phasing this project, but you're moving forward with this project?
Well, the pool factors into how I feel about this too.
Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the pool, but if we had a plan for the pool, your stance is you would like to look at ways to reduce the cost of this, maybe change things, but this is the direction you want to go.
Yes, I think that, and let me just clarify one other thing too. I'm not trying to drag this on, but when that property came up, I was just sworn in. And I was a big proponent of keeping City Hall on this side of 290. So I was elated when I saw an opportunity. Oh, great, this means it's going to stay here. There's no way it's going to go anywhere. I remember the petition for that. I remember it. So just wanted to kind of add that tidbit. Now, I am open. If you're talking about selling it, worst case scenario, fine. But what about if, to reduce the cost, we do it in phases. Long term, we know it's going to cost us more money to do that, or at least based on, construction costs or whatever. But I'm willing to do that if people are more comfortable with that. I just think that anyway, so I'm open, but I really, maybe between your view, and the other extreme, if we can get somewhere where we can phase it, would you be open to that?
Well, I want to clarify because a lot of people have moved on to other things, and we have to keep an efficient meeting.
Okay.
And I think both of y'all have had a chance to talk, but would like to hear from Jen or Drew, because there's a chance this conversation doesn't need to happen. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but let's hear from the other two.
Okay. Sorry, I did not mean to.
I don't. Yeah. And I won't be long. My concerns, I have significant concerns about phasing anything, whether it's this project, the concept of phasing work at the pool. Like any phasing that we come up with that is the idea, I'm adamantly opposed to, because things don't get done that way. I think we have plenty of proof in the past of councils not following through with plans, and I just don't think that's a smart decision. I remember I was really struggling with this in that meeting we had earlier this year in the U-shaped meeting room, and Sherry Shepard made the comment about it being time for Jersey Village to invest in Jersey Village and decide that it was okay to have things that we are proud of, and it's okay to spend money on Jersey Village and our own infrastructure. And I agree. I don't think it's $24 million. I also want to point out, It said maximum price at 24. The construction costs, I believe, were 20.5. So I think we need to stop throwing around the 24 number. Do I think it could possibly be done for less? Absolutely. I'm okay with either the original A. To be honest, I don't quite understand where the big changes are in this. Like, I look at it, I still don't really see much of what the big changes are. I do think we need more community space than what we have now. We have had multiple conversations about that. We had conversations about why we couldn't keep letting certain groups just take over the space when they wanted. It is, I know it seems like it's empty a lot. It's not. It's like a revolving door here. They have to turn groups away. Like, I can tell you, parents reserve this area, this room, for an 8th grade off-school dance because Cy-Fair doesn't allow those. They reserve this almost a year in advance for that. And that's just for a 4-hour rental. So, like, I don't know why everybody wants to meet here, but they do. We do need community space. And those community groups, I believe, are what keeps our community a community. And JVSO is one of the big ones that allows people to stay where they're at for longer. So for me, it would be moving forward. I want to spend less. would not want to phase it. I understand the idea of selling the property. One of the big reasons we chose to move forward over there is because your other options over there, I don't think anybody on Rio Grande wants to sit and look at cars parked for Joe Myers. Because I think that Joe Myers was the most interested party in that, or whoever is that, I don't know if they're Group 1 Auto, was interested in that. And while they cannot sell cars there, they can legally park cars there. That also does not contribute to our sales tax. It does nothing. So other than you guys waking up and having your coffee with new inventory, car inventory, that's not an interest to me.
Just responding to that, though, real quickly. If the city is selling the property, it can do a couple of things. One, it can zone it however it wants. 2, it can select the seller. 3, it could, if it wanted, it could possibly put covenants on the deed with respect to the sale. And 4, because that space was configured and at least at some point was a school, and as you know, there are a lot of people who live in Jersey Village but send their children to school elsewhere, not going to Post Oak. So, that might be just, and this is just brainstorming, but that might be a prime possibility to sell that property to a small school, a startup school that, would be really good for the community. Who knows? So, but I understand your concern. I wouldn't want to see even for a premium, even if the city sold it for, 50% more than it purchased it for, I wouldn't want to see it sold to any of the car dealerships. I wouldn't want my neighbors here living on Lakeview looking out at car inventory. So I think you'd have to be smart, but I think the city got it for a good price. And I think potentially, and it might be something where dealing with the JVSO where you say, you know what, we're not going to sell all of it. Or we're going to sell it, but we'll have an opportunity to use certain buildings under certain conditions. Something. I mean, there's all sorts of things you can do in a transaction. And so, anyway, just wanted to respond.
So if I sell that property, I'm voting to sell it to the highest bidder because I've heard from everyone that is against moving forward with the property that the city's broke and we have no money, and the surest fire way to get money is to sell it, redeem our purchase price, and get any profit. Most likely that means multifamily or to a realtor, and yes, we can put in covenants and things like that, and we can avoid looking at cars, but it probably means adding more people to the city, which, on the other hand, I don't think a lot of people would want in that respect either. So, be careful what you ask for. I voted to purchase the property. I voted to purchase the property knowing that it would need some reconstruction and knowing that it adds more space to that. So I'll own that. I'll own voting for an extra maintenance person because of that. That's on me. I also have been enticed to pursue this current option with the land because of the compelling and true argument that this city does deserve something more than old buildings held together with duct tape, baling wire, and chewing gum, and conduit. That said, maybe it's not worth, we shouldn't spend $21 million. In the budget meeting, I asked everyone there, so Jen, you have an excused absence. I asked everyone there to come to the meeting tonight with your plan. That's why I did not vote to repeal the COs, because no one there had a plan on how to reduce that cost. I voted for the COs in May so we could pursue going with this. I don't like the 24. I don't like the 21. I think there are buildings in that plan that could be reused and used better. Mr. Peterson, I think you're right. I don't like the idea of offices, but I'm on council here, and I think the incremental cost of adding, and I could be wrong, changing the format of that building in there from offices to cubicles to whatever. I'm not staff. I don't run the staff. I am the people manager of the leader of the staff. But at the end of the day, what works best for that staff is what works best for them, and they have an idea to contribute to that. So, is that a cost to consider? Yes, but I don't think that's going to make or break this deal. Words that are going through my mind, though, Councilmember Hughes, you mentioned community appropriate, and I don't know what that means.
You know, a pool that is built in, although I don't know that River Oaks would have a pool because they probably all have their own pool. Let's just say Westview. A Westview pool is going to have a certain look, feel, size, amenities, etc., because it's surrounded by houses that are, worth a minimum of $750,000 and upwards of $2 million. That is very different than a community pool for a smaller community or a community with houses that have less value. And again, it goes back to, and again, I look at the pools in the town where I grew up, and they were just a rectangular body of water with a deep end and a shallow end. And I realize that was eons ago, but, we can have a pool. We had a decent pool. It was in poor condition. Unfortunately, it's gone. That's behind us now. But I think that we can build a pool without building a $10.1 million pool, and obviously the voters don't have an appetite for that. I think that we can, what are the essential things? I mean, Jen, kids, they make fun out of their circumstances, and you don't have to have all the bells and whistles and a flashy splash pad that works or doesn't work, because we've had tremendous problems with that. But with a pool, just a regular pool with some swimming lanes and a shallow area, etc. I mean, we can build that. That's what I'm advocating for with respect to the pool bond issue. So when I say community appropriate, in the same vein when talking about City Hall, look at the Sugar Land City Hall. It's got that old, Southern style look to it, and very impressive. But look at the size and look at the wealth of Sugar Land. We couldn't build that here. We shouldn't build that here. I'm not saying build a crummy little building. We've got a nice-looking police station. We've got a nice-looking fire station. Those are community appropriate, and that's what I'm saying about the City Hall. We need a community appropriate City Hall. And I'm also saying, again, I'll just point out from a standpoint, when I found out this afternoon that there's a 23,000 square foot building for sale in Jersey Village for $6 million.
Where is that?
That's up on Dillard Drive.
Is that the brewery?
Building next door. And really think about putting a pen to paper rather than running down the road on this city campus idea.
I'm flexible. The weight of what we do here affects the next 50 years of this city, though, is definitely it affects me, and I suspect it's affecting everybody up here, which could be why I'm always so indecisive.
Where do you cut, Connie?
Well, I remember asking this was back in February, so I don't remember exactly what it was, but I remember asking how much it would cost to tear this down and rebuild it, and it wasn't much different than what we were planning to do over there. I don't remember the exact numbers, but I do remember feeling like, well, it's just as expensive to redo everything than to build brand new.
I read somewhere, and my numbers could be off, that commercial construction is roughly, and this is Deer Park recently built, I think, a 25,000 square foot city hall. And this is a few years ago, but I think, what's that? 5 years ago. And it was a little less than this, but commercial construction goes anywhere from 250 to 450 square feet for something new. That's why the 510 for the council room, lobby, courtroom, conference rooms seemed a little high.
That was the difference between new construction versus remodel, because there's so much more there.
Right, and the number, the $450 amount is when you get a larger building. When you've got the smaller building, the 8,700 square feet, that's when your cost per square foot goes up because it's less to spread it out.
The denominators.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Austin, the City Campus project has multiple parts. What's the admin office? There's a breakdown. I want to say the chambers was 4, but what's the admin office?
So the admin office would be just over $3 million. And then the council, courtroom, those pieces would be about $4.4 million.
So please explain. I don't understand how an office building on Dillard that doesn't have any type of courthouse in it, does not have public works facility, would need significant renovation for any type of this community space, is cheaper at $6 million.
One, it's 23,000 square feet. 2, it has office space and it has open space. It may need some reconfiguration. And I'm not saying it's the be-all, end-all, but what it is demonstrative of is there are other options out there. I think that we are myopically focused on the land that was purchased. And I will tell you that, like you, Connie, when I heard they bought that building, I was like, oh, that's a good place for City Hall. That makes sense. And I was like, yeah, they're going to spend a little money. They're probably going to spend, I was thinking, $6 million, to do some renovations, because some of those buildings, yes, are older, but some of them are much younger. I probably have it here. And when I talked to Bobby Warren, I was like, well, what did you think? When y'all were talking about buying that building, what did you think the city was going to have to put into it to build it out and have a functional? Oh, about $10 million. So, the fact that we're sitting here now saying, well, it's 21, 23, up to 24, I mean, that's apples and oranges. You're talking about, all-in cost, $30 million. Well, the land was 4.2 and plus 24. That's $30 million.
I'm bringing it all in, but it was up to 24. To be fair, you're right. That when this all first started, the most I think was up to 10 million or something. I remember getting the same. So, but we didn't. But that's before we knew the conditioning and all that kind of stuff. What I was excited about and what I didn't think about was all the rec space. Even though there is a gym or like a basketball court or whatever over there, I remember when I started to see this kind of be put on paper for me to look at, I was very pleased with how much recreational space there was and community space there was for everybody. that I didn't anticipate.
I think we're also forgetting this is like it's also going to house, oh my God. Public Works? Thank you, Public Works. It's like starts with a P, help me out. It's also going to house Public Works. It's bringing all that stuff over from Taylor Road. And if we end up selling the land on Taylor Road for what sounds like what we will be able to sell it for, I think the trade-off is definitely good there.
I don't disagree with you that if bringing Public Works over here, there's an advantage. The argument about the travel time is not necessarily a compelling argument, but from a convenience standpoint, to have the workers who are maintaining the city actually within the city limits on this side of 290, yeah, that makes sense. The only thing I don't like about the existing plan with Public Works is why in the world do you have to take space that is indoor space, the youth center, the church youth center, to put all the vehicles in it? And the only reason that I've been told is, well, because, people steal catalytic converters and we don't want the catalytic converters stolen. And to me, if you're going to demo, if you take that city campus, if you demo the old bank building, credit union building, which is garbage anyway, right? And then you erect a fence, you can protect all your city vehicles from theft. And by the way, we've got a half a dozen city vehicles out here that are not fenced in, just sitting in the parking lot. But you can protect them. But why use that air-conditioned space in the youth center to park vehicles inside? That makes zero sense.
I think the catalytic converter thing was something that people got hooked on, but there was also lots of discussion about wear and tear on the vehicles, and a lot of storage of the equipment that was in there. There was several other things. You might be able to remind me some of the
street sweeper and all the other trailers and those types of things that would be visible when people are driving into the community as well. So there was a lot more reasons than just catalytic converters being stolen. I'm glad you agree with that. But there's a lot of reasons. But at the end of the day, I mean, like I've told council a million times before, we'll do whatever council wants us to do. If council wants to change the plan, that's the council's decision.
But I'm not hearing a majority does.
I don't know what the majority or even a minority wants to do with the plan. I mean, I agree it's too expensive. I, for one, think that you could chop off $4 million roughly for the council and court and other chambers and make do with either other facilities in there and redesign and rearrange things in there, because there's already a couple theaters, one in the air-conditioned soon-to-be Public Works space, and you also have this facility right here. Now, is this going to scale and be a long-term solution? It's going to end up that way, but it is not the long-term solution in my mind. The opportunity to do something, as Connie said, is now. That said, I've said before, I'm uncomfortable with the price. So if you go from 21 minus 4, now you're at 17. Some of that would probably be paid for by Public Works. So now you're at 15. There's probably some allocation. I don't know.
I mean, so...
wait, hold on. I'm just completing. There's possibly some allocation towards if we could pay for dispatch with a portion of dispatch build out, maybe with some of the CCPD fund, which I don't know how much that would be, but it would be a portion that would not have to come from property tax bonds or could be reimbursed to that effect. So now you're 4 minus 2, so now you're at 15. I don't know. I mean, now you're at 15, borrowing and paying for with taxpayer property taxes, 44% of which are paid for by residents, at 15. Now, we go for a bond for hire because all those other things haven't been done. So
are you suggesting bond for 17 and let them figure out how to make it work?
No.
glad.
It's an option.
I'm glad that you said, "Are you suggesting?"
Like, because I'm trying to understand, like, where,
Well, and
what's.
so I'm going to add this is that one of the things that the Jersey Village City Council does not do well is move through these sorts of discussions. And one of the things everybody deserves, everybody has the right to an efficient meeting. So I'm going to try to change things up and see how this works. Is we don't really have a direction we're going. So what I would like to ask is, one of the things you've repeatedly suggested is you would like to go back to the drawing board or consider options outside of this property. And so I'm going to use that as an example as I go through this, and we can do that or not. But I would suggest that you make that motion of, hey, I want us to talk about and consider, are we going to do this property or are we going to go somewhere else? And if someone agrees with you and seconds that, then we talk about it. We talk about it till we're that concept, and then we vote on that concept and we move on to the next thing. Because we're talking in a lot of different directions, and we're not really sure where we're going. And
that's the point of a discussion is to, I mean, you're asking for a motion in a second. Like, okay,
but that's how
we're trying to explore all of these options. And remember, we're only on the first point, and that is what is the breadth of the City Hall City Campus project, because that potentially has an impact on the borrowing for the 3 bonds and et cetera, et cetera.
But what I'm suggesting is what thousands of governing bodies do every day. And it is a workable solution that guides the discussion. It's the way we should do this. Jersey Village has just never followed it. I think it's very helpful here when you have a council member asking, what are you suggesting? And our direction has been this City Hall. One vote has changed. So we'll see how this goes, but I don't see us moving far away from this.
So let me ask this, and this is germane, your question or your suggestion, and that is Austin to date, since the city on May 14th executed the contract with the architect and to get his 7% fee, how much work has been done by that architect? How much expense has the city incurred to date with the architect? And I think that when you forwarded the plans to me early on, I think we had one invoice for like $22,000, but that was just the schematic. So, how much expense?
Yeah, we've had a few meetings with them. They're starting their work, and they're getting ready to bring in the consultants, the MEP and those types of consultants to keep moving forward. I don't know how much we've spent with them since we executed that contract in May. I don't know that number right offhand.
So you have no recollection, no idea whether we've spent 5, 10, 50, 100?
I just said I don't know what we've spent so far.
And I think one of the things you asked early on is, you're looking for direction from council. Should you pause? So my suggestion, or I would make a motion if you want, my motion is that, as that city council would make the decision to pause moving forward on that architectural contract with that group while we discuss the possibility of what are our other options besides just option A, city campus here. So that's my motion.
Can I offer some discussion?
So
I hear the motion.
His motion, if you want to discuss it, then second it and stop.
I guess I'm just wanting to clarify. It is July 22nd. August 18th, if I am correct, is the last day we have to prepare everything to post for the bond election. Is that correct? Can somebody confirm that for me?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah. So I guess for me, I don't understand. This is 20 days, right? Okay.
So you said it doesn't sound like you want to second.
No, I don't want to second it because I'm thinking of the timeline. I don't feel like that's a sufficient amount of time.
So the purpose of that is,
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand the whole thing.
yeah, is if
Before I
that's
second something.
your motion and that's a respectable motion, but if we can't get a second, if everyone up here feels similar to Jennifer's, we only have till August 18th. If we want to call for a bond, that's not enough time to make change. I'm happy with the direction that we are going. I don't feel like I want to do that. If there's not a second to have that conversation, there's no way it's going to get 3 votes. And so I don't feel like it's a productive conversation. And that our time could be better spent talking, okay, if we're not going to pause, does any part of this need to change?
The pause, as I said, was to pause on the additional work that the architect was doing,
Yes.
as Austin suggested.
Yes.
Oh, I see. So can I clarify then?
Yeah, you can, because I actually might have seconded what he said. So
Okay, let me clarify. Okay, you're saying to pause all the work now, and wait till the bond either passes or doesn't pass to know where we're going to go next with this whole thing?
Actually, I didn't, but I do think that's a good. I think that's a good way to go, because right now before the petition, you had the CO that those wheels were in motion, and at the same time that the notice of intent for the CO was approved by council, the architect contract was approved, and so the architects are now making their 7% and moving forward. As we sit here today, we don't have a financing mechanism in place, and the only way to have that financing mechanism in place is to have voter approval.
okay, so we have a motion to suspend architectural services for the city campus project. We have a second. Please discuss.
Wait, but I want to make sure, before I second,
Okay.
that we understand it's to see what this bond is, how the outcome of this bond will go before we continue.
I'm perfectly fine with that, yeah.
He accepts. You second. Discuss.
Okay, I'll second that, if that's what you're saying. Okay.
Y'all can discuss that concept of, do you want to pause?
Because I'm willing to meet in the middle. I'm not as far as you are with it, but I'm willing to meet in the middle, because I don't want to see this never get done. But there is an uncertainty on how this bond election's going to go, and that's why I'm leaning on. That's why I leaned on that one.
And I agree, because we don't want to be in the situation we were with Collaborate, spending all the money on plans that are never used. And so it makes sense, even if you were steadfastly saying, I'm absolutely going with option A, I want the $21 million city campus, because right now we don't have financing for it. And if we don't have financing for it, do we really need to be putting together another set of city hall plans?
Devil's advocate, some people are going to say no because they don't know what we're planning on doing over there too. That's just something. That's something to think about.
And it's like, so then we're stuck in that loop again. If I didn't vote for the pool bond issue because it was too vague. It didn't continue. You had no design. Granted, we had schematics, we had ideas, but we didn't have design. Also, to me, this is just sounding more and more of like the indecision versus let's make a decision. And this makes me think of the golf course clubhouse.
We still don't know what we're building yet. I think we voted on it. We voted on it in February. We had agreement in May. We had agreement in May again. We had agreement on July 11th. There's been no changes, no substantive changes brought up by this council, any member of us, including myself, to change the amount, the style, the substance, any direction to give to the city staff. City staff appropriately is going forward with the architectural design because they have not been told One, they haven't been told no, and they haven't been told that something's changed. So, before I don't disagree with the idea of saving money and stopping what we're doing, but let's figure out what we're doing before we do that. That's why I will not vote for this motion until we at least have some sort of plan.
I was doing math while you were talking. I kind of like this. Look, like I said before, I know it's going to end up being more expensive later, but I think people will digest pieces of this project, and we're starting to pluck some stuff out. I was plucking stuff out. I think if we give them a manageable bond proposal, then I think that's a good place to start.
So I don't want to get off topic. I think Drew is right. I agree with what he says. I don't disagree with necessarily with the idea of waiting until you have the finance, but at the same time, everything he said is true. And to me, until we actually have a better plan, I would not support that motion. But as to what you're saying, I understand the appeal. I do, because it's way better to say we need $2 million, we need $3 million, we need $1 million. However, you move forward with something like that and you get one thing done over there, and then the next council decides we don't like that direction, and you have the stupidest looking thing in the world. And then you own a home in a neighborhood that is known for, they're the people that half built something and then quit. And to me, I just cannot, I would not want to do that. That, to me, is like looking at some of these elementary schools where you see where they built and then they half built and they're like 6 different levels and then they have dead ends. And it's like that to me is, and that's my struggle with that. So.
But I hear you, but I rather be able to get something than nothing at all. And get something either started or not. But I will tell you, if we put 24 million, not to exceed 24 million, I don't have faith that will make it.
And I don't think we should put 24 million. I think that something a little closer to what Drew was mentioning would be a lot more digestible.
So I might suggest, what if you whittled it down to the A building, which would house 25 employees who are currently in City Hall, and doing a remodel on the A building, and then doing a remodel on the youth center to allow some storage space for Public Works, but demolishing the old bank building and building a yard where equipment and trucks, et cetera, for Public Works could be, and using the balance of that youth center as some community space to serve the community. So now you're just talking about remodeling 2 separate buildings. You're not doing anything else yet to any other buildings, but you're coming up with a more effective budget that gives us a new City Hall for the administrative offices, community space, and Public Works while we try to sell the Taylor Road facility. Just an idea.
I don't want to mix Public Works with community spaces. And I think I don't care for the idea of, I understand there's a weird amount of nostalgia for people with that building. I don't think nostalgia is a reason to make a decision. I like the concept of having that building, whatever we're calling it in the schematics, for Public Works with the vehicles inside. I like that, how that is. I wouldn't support changing that. I don't mind cutting down the budget. And to be honest, I don't mind cutting the budget down and saying, let's move forward and figure it out if you have to change some stuff up. But for me, I think those buildings, that stuff I think the concept with where we have Public Works inside is fine. I think that needs to be what it does.
So there's a motion. Are we going to vote on said motion, or are we going to table that?
That's what I was about to jump in is, we have pretty thoroughly discussed whether or not we want to continue the architectural designs of this property. Nobody has anything further on that. The motion is that we discontinue architectural design at this time.
And suspend the architectural work.
Yeah, that we
until a definitive decision is made.
that we suspend architectural work at this time. And so if you're in favor of suspending the architectural work, say aye. There we go.
Wait, say it again, I'm sorry.
If you are in favor of suspending the architectural work on the city campus project, vote by aye.
Suspending it forever?
No, you're suspending it until we reopen it. It may be the bond.
I have the motion as suspending it until we have a bond election result.
That's what I was making the motion on, or my second was on that.
That's how I took the motion.
That's the motion. If you're in favor, raise your hand. If you're against, and we have somebody not here, and I have to go with my own personal thoughts as well as hers, and I will say no, we will continue the architectural design. Now, there was started having some discussion about redesign.
Can I make a motion?
Yeah.
Just to kind of steer this discussion so we all know where we stand, I move that we direct staff to make means to put the property up for sale, stop construction on City Hall, and look for a new place to hold business. And I move that we market the current city campus property, put that up for sale, and find alternative workplace for city government, because I don't want them working in that building any longer than they need to.
I have a motion to discontinue and place the property for sale. Does it have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Any discussion?
Do you want to explain that a little more?
My whole thing is either we move forward with, and I think the discussion is going towards, I should have made this motion at the beginning of the night, so I apologize for lack of brevity on the meeting. I just want to make sure that we're headed in the right direction and we all are in agreement that we make something do with that property. Or if not, we might as well stop making do with that property as soon as we can, because otherwise we're wasting our time, we're wasting staff's time, and we're spending money.
I think that property is the right choice for us long term. However, that being said, I have zero interest in sitting and doing nothing. And so if it's going to be, we're not going to do anything, wherever that ends up, then I would agree with you.
I agree. I've watched this city have this discussion, and I've watched these plans as we go, and I said it in February, and I said it again in May. I am not a fan of this right now. However, that is the right project. That is the right design. This speaks to the community. This is exactly what I think we should do. I would like it to be a little bit cheaper, but I've made that mistake sitting up here before. And so we are going to move forward with design, trust competitive bid to do what it should.
You didn't give everybody an opportunity. She seconded, right?
Yeah, I'm just talking, this is my opinion of what I think Jersey Village should do. As far as taxes, everything, yeah, I'd love to delay it another 2 years. That opportunity is not here. To phase it out means it's more expensive. Absolutely. To shrink offices and put more offices in there is more expensive. There's a difference between building new and building existing. This plan can absolutely be adjusted. There's cost savings in places, but this plan is what JV should do.
Comment about the cost. Look at the diagram of the existing facility. Look at the walls, virtually, and then look at the new diagram of the proposed. And a lot of those walls are changed. A lot of those walls are moved. So it's not as if they're going in and taking the existing facilities and saying, okay, well, this room's 30 by 15, but we'll just make a bullpen in here. No, they've pretty much changed a lot of when you look at the design, they've changed a lot of the walls. And so, the gentleman who spoke about, having every department head, every, city staff person having their own office, which is not the way current business works. I mean, there are a lot more open spaces except for, C-suite. To me, what your comment that to do away with the offices is going to add cost, right now you're doing away with virtually all the walls and putting up new walls. So I think your statement is untrue.
Okay. I'm speaking to the overall project. As far as moving the existing walls, that is all stuff that I am not in a position to talk about. The architect and designers do that. We can direct him to look for opportunities to save those monies, but deciding the position of walls is not a discussion I'm going to have any input up here with. If y'all want to discuss that, that's up to y'all. But that is way in the weeds. The motion is to abandon the project. That is what I spoke to.
What are we allowed to discuss how much we could possibly get the Taylor Road building for?
I would be very hesitant to throw out any numbers on a recorded meeting.
Okay. So, what I did was I went to, because my concern, I don't want to abandon the whole thing. Personally, I don't. I think we're onto something here. We just all have to get on a similar page, and I'm with Simon on pulling out some costs. I do understand the argument against that, I really do, but I don't want to see this community torn apart any more than it has to be over whether a room is 200 square feet, or if we have a covered parking lot for cars because of catalytic converters, because I'm not in a place to speak to that. But I do know what numbers look like. We all do. And look, I pulled Public Works. So I used, what is this? Option A. The total project cost is $21,611,025. Okay?
Yeah.
All I did was pull out Public Works, city offices, and the community center dispatch rec offices. And the reason for that was because it was a community center and the dispatch. Those are kind of important. That came out to $10,602,000 and some change. I did not take into account all the other stuff because whatever. But I think that my biggest fear is people will not vote for this because of the dollar amount, which is what you pointed out. Chop it in half.
I think it's probably unfair, especially after hearing some of these comments. Yeah. Simon's not the only one trying to save money.
I know that.
Everybody has talked about how they would like to lower the cost, and everybody has talked about ways they think it can happen. And I think Drew was trying to show there are some things we agree on.
Are we on board or not? Is what Drew's saying. Like, are we on board moving forward with the project or
Yeah,
not?
I mean,
And that's the motion. I think we need to vote.
And here's a hat tip. I'm for going forward with the project. I just want to.
Gotcha. I didn't doubt that.
But
The
I
only
think
reason I
I
seconded
have a motion.
The only reason I seconded it because I knew what it was about.
Right.
I can read a room sometimes.
But I
There's,
think
there's a difference between I want to move forward in the project and it's going to be this dollar amount and I'm not going to change anything, and I want to move forward. I think we can go down a little. There may be some unexpected things go up, but this is the general direction I want to go. And then there's a difference of, I don't think this is right at all. I want to go look at something else. So if there's any further discussion. Okay, the motion on the table with a second is that we abandon the city campus project. We list the property for sale.
And find alternative workspace for City Hall staff.
And find an alternative workspace for city staff. If you were those in favor of that motion. Motion fails. Anyone else have another motion?
I think we're really getting somewhere here.
I think so too, honestly, is if there's not another motion, we move on to the next topic.
Okay, let me see if I can. I would make a motion. This is such a backwards way of doing things, having a discussion. I would make a motion that the city come up with a plan to move forward on reconfiguring Building A and Building G, and that be the scope of the remodel that the city moves forward on.
Say those buildings again.
Yeah. That the city move forward on doing a remodel of Building A for city staff and Building G for Public Works, and trying to, somewhere in there, create some community space, which is certainly possible, and back burner everything else.
I can't comment because I don't have that file. So until I have that information pulled up specifically, I'm not comfortable. I mean, I want the drawing. I need the drawings with the labels. Can we get a repeat of the motion? Yeah.
I think I've got that he's moved to direct staff to reconfigure the remodeling of Building A for city staff and Building G for Public Works, and everything else is on hold for now.
Oh.
So I'm sending out the information with the maps in it, so it should be in council's inbox here if everybody needs that. It should be the last 2 pages of the PDF file that y'all should have just received.
I just want to clarify I have it correct. Direct staff to reconfigure the remodel of Building A for city staff and Building G for Public Works and community space, and hold remodel on all other buildings at this time.
Correct. Is there a second? No second.
I move that we end this discussion and look for a May vote for City Hall, whereas in between we can handle workshops for council and make more effective use of time because it does not seem that we're going to come up with the dollar amount for a bond and in an agreement.
Just to
Drew
clarify, can I clarify what he's saying? Because I'm going to make sure I understand it.
As I was about to
Okay, go ahead,
summarize,
because I just need to understand.
Yeah, Drew Wasson has moved that we continue design and we postpone the bond election to the May 2026 election. Is there a second?
I second that.
Second discussion.
I have a question or comment there. In light of the petition and the certificate of obligation, since the city campus bond/CO would not be on the November ballot as an election, what is the city's obligation with respect to the validated petition and the certificate of obligation?
We just can't move forward. We can have the CO election if we'd like to in May instead of November. We just can't move forward with those COs for that project without scheduling a vote at a uniform election time.
And so the election, if this motion passed, the election would go forward and it would be emanating from that same CO, subject to the requirements that the bond council mentioned with respect to the scope of it, et cetera, et cetera. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't confirm it could be CO-GEO. It's just the content, correct?
So, can you restate your question?
Basically, what I said is, if to allow further discussion workshops, the vote that is the subject of the vote on the proposed bond, which is the subject of the certificate of obligation and the validated petition, is moved from November to May, that the requirements, how the city responds to that validated petition, are still in play. That if we move forward with the language that was under the CO, we're subject to all the same things as bond council discussed yesterday.
Yes, we are beholden to the same requirements. If we abandon the COs, we can redo GOs, but we have to stay within the laws of the GOs, which also, as we learned last night, could mean breaking this up.
I just wanted to make sure I understood what everybody's saying here.
I mean, but I also recall that the bond council suggested, with advice of the Attorney General, that we could lower the amount and continue as is into
as
May.
a CO.
So the other idea, in refute of my entire motion, is that we move ahead and we all subject ourselves to about 2 or 3 more meetings and workshops between now and August 18th so we can pencil in a number. Because right now we're still headed to ballot with $21.6 to $24 million on the ballot, not to exceed amount.
And I agree that is too much.
My worry is that we go about this willy-nilly and just throw out a number, which is fine. It's not fine, but you want to have a number that you can live with.
Same conversation with the pool, right?
And we don't have a pool.
And the idea is that when people vote for a bond, yes, designs are nice, thoughts are nice, but it's also they're voting for the funding. And you'd like to know what you're getting. If you have a bond for a road or a sewer, you don't necessarily need to see the road before you vote for it, or the designs for the sewer, or the insides of the sewer before you vote for it. So, Lord help us. So anyway.
And just to clarify, you are only talking about the city campus.
I am only talking about the city campus.
Your motion only, because I would have zero interest in putting off any bonding for infrastructure. I want to make sure. The motion. I just want to state it out loud.
Yep. The motion is only for city campus.
Thank you. We're still on a conversation about it, so it's your time to chatty chat.
So, well, I'm going to ask the city manager. Roughly, Pat, I'm pretty decent at math, I guess. If we go with a 4%, 6% construction interest rate, 4 to 6%, that means 3% for 6 more months. Adding to this, or roughly 4%. What's 4% of $21 million? $800,000-ish? Yeah. Okay. So that motion is an $800,000 motion.
What was the percentage you asked for?
4%.
Let the record show that
$864,000.
So what you're saying, I guess the point you're trying to make is that delaying is a potential, at the $21 million price tag, has a $860,000 price tag for delay.
Yes. What I'm also saying is that we've been up here for an hour and a half and discussing ideas and thoughts and haven't moved forward with that. Other than we do have the idea that we want to move forward with the property, and we have the idea that we don't want to spend $24 million. So somewhere between 0 and $24 million is where our answer lies. And I'm willing to meet, other than tonight, to pursue that answer if we're all willing to say this is going towards a bond.
I'm willing to meet, and I'm willing to make I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to be open to ideas. My concern is waiting is just doing what I think a lot of people like to do up here, which is to push off making a choice. And sometimes it's pushing off making what could be an unpopular choice. I understand that those aren't necessarily positive politically. Who cares? I mean, I don't have a problem making a hard decision up here, and I'm good with that.
Yeah, I also think sometimes a quick decision is not necessarily the right one, and I think that this is it's a very complex issue, and there's a lot of moving parts, and of course the city, we have additional priorities, obviously infrastructure, water, sewer, the community wanting a pool, etc. And my preference, notwithstanding a theoretical cost associated with waiting, is to do as Drew offered in the motion, which is to come back and have an election in May on a city hall project, and to use that interim period, not the next 20 days, to refine and come up with a more viable plan for a city hall and presumably public works that in a way that works and also gives us community space.
In this scenario, just to clarify, does everyone end up seeing then a pool bond and infrastructure bond in November, and then a city campus bond in May, along with normal city elections?
Well, that's kind of what I'm picturing with this motion. And just so you guys, I understand that construction costs are going up. I totally understand it. It's more about, and by the way, I'm not making decisions just for politics. I think the reason I'm very indecisive is because I am bringing in all this input, and they're all compelling.
Austin, I wasn't here. How many months ago did we buy this and start the process?
We closed on the property in December. We started the schematic design, I think it was in December as well. Or, sorry, conceptual. We didn't close on the property until...
But August is when we learned of it.
Like council authorized the purchase in August, and that's when we started doing the property conditions and those things. But
December closed, then I remember being at the February meeting about it.
Well, here's the thing. If we wait till May election, so we'd be calling that in February, right? So we would still be crunching a little bit to make sure we get to February to call it, which I'm comfortable with. I'm on you. I'm on the same page. So, are we all confident that we can get to a decision at that point?
Can I throw another fun
Austin
hurdle in this discussion? Council has previously directed us to list for sale the 2 properties we own on Taylor Road. It's possible we would get an offer, and council would accept that offer within 30 to 60 days, and then we'd have closing and all that other good stuff. Not sure where we're going to put those guys and all of the equipment and all the stuff if we don't even have a plan of what we're going to do.
I would be more interested in continuing to meet and make a decision. I get it. I get it. But I think we need to figure out one way or the other. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah. And I'll reiterate, I think it's a longer conversation, and it's going to be like I said, it's complex, and it's just going to take time to come up. I mean, you're trying to build consensus between 5 people that have very different opinions about how to get where everybody wants what's best for the city, and everybody wants a nice facility and a convenient facility, a safe workspace for the employees, and things that are good for the community but not spend too much money. It's very difficult to come up with something and check all those boxes. And I recognize Drew's comment and Austin's that, waiting, there's a cost associated with that. I recognize that, but I just don't think it's realistic to say in the next 20 days we can come up with a viable plan and say to the voters, hey, this really works. Because my first question as a voter would be, well, gosh, y'all just came up with this in the last 2-3 weeks. That I would be
10 months
skeptical of it.
We started this back in December. This conversation has been going on for 9 months already.
Yeah, I'm saying, for example, if the plan came in the next 2 weeks prior to August 20th or 21st, whatever day it was, if the plan came together, okay, we're going to do buildings A and G for this, for this amount, would people say, is that a well thought out plan, and what happened? And you also have to think, you're putting this to the voters. Think about the voter response to the $10.1 million pool bond, which had a PAC behind it and had people out there campaigning for it, and voters still came around and said, we don't support it. So if you're going to float a bond, you need to demonstrate that it's a worthwhile bond and it makes sense. It's a whole lot easier to do when you're talking about water and sewer and infrastructure, because, like Drew said, I don't need to see the inside of a pipeline. But when you're talking about, okay, we're going to float a bond for X million dollars for City Hall project or City Hall Public Works project, it needs to be well thought out. The voters need to be persuaded if this is a good proposition.
Okay. I think some of that is perception. because at the same time that the PAC and all that was going on, there was also another group or individuals putting out completely different information. So I think that's, I don't know, I see, where do we put Public Works? If we sell those buildings, where do we put them?
You could always sell a property and lease it back. I mean, again, these are all structures in a deal. I mean, it happens every day.
Drew's motion is that we postpone the bond election until May. And continue design. Does anybody have any more discussion to that?
And continue design or not?
And continue. We already.
Have the motion.
We already
as
voted on
continue
the other one.
design, but postpone the election till May.
I'm going to do my best to destroy my initial motion. I honestly want to move forward with this. We do have a design. The fact that we don't like the number associated with that, we're not trying to redesign. I mean, maybe we are. I think what we're trying to do is redesign the motion and then instruct staff to go deal with that number eventually. But we're also trying to persuade the voter that it's a worthwhile project, worth supporting, and worth taking. It's a 50-year project that's worth taking out debt to support. I don't like the $21 million price tag any more than anyone else does, and I'm just as at fault as anyone else for not moving forward with that. My hope was that in the 10 days since July 11th, we would have had other numbers, or the 2 months since May 12th and May 14th when we started with the COs, we would have had something that our brains collectively would have come up with something that we felt assured to move forward with, and maybe just maybe between now and August 18th we can do that. I mean, Connie and I were just spouting out some numbers earlier, and there is something in this numbers that were pretty well thought out from February for package A that I think we could maybe do a workaround and cut out some, not all, but some of that money. And there's also, nobody said that these were the hard costs. These are a concept high cost.
It's also important to remember this is not gone out to bid. This is not the number coming back from a contractor, and I would be quite honest, way more interested in seeing that. I think this is worth working for, and I think this is worth moving forward.
We understand that. A lot of people don't understand that. And so all they see is 24 million, that's too expensive, that's ridiculous. That's my experience, at least from the pool bond issue as well.
So these numbers are from Brookstone. I mean, they don't have construction drawings or anything like else, but it's a little more realistic than just architect numbers, rough square foot. These guys are using numbers that they've recently bid and they're seeing from their subs and those types of things. So
these numbers are more accurate than the original golf course clubhouse schematic drawings that were so far off. I mean, that's because that's the point. I want to make sure we're different there.
Right, you're talking about like the golf course when they said it was like going to be 2.7 and it came back 5.
Yes, these numbers are significantly more accurate than those.
Yes, these numbers are from Brookstone.
Because that is something I've been asked.
And a lot of projects during that timeline saw the same situation where they had cost estimates that were half of what their bids ended up being.
And I also want to point out that even if we phase it, it's not just the buildings that, the council chambers, the admin. We've got roughly $2.1 million in site work and building demolition, which the site work needs to get done. That's a little over $2 million, and the other 2 buildings for demolition. Or 3 buildings for demolition. We probably want to get that all done at the same time. So that even if we're talking just the $3 million for the admin and the $2.3 million for the public works, we really got to be making sure we're taking in at least all the site work for another $2 million, because that's not something you can really piecemeal.
I will bring my boys and a hammer and we'll save you the $2 million. We'll just take it. Do you want to withdraw or amend?
I will actually withdraw my motion if that's feasible under these rules.
I will not say that I'm making it up, actually drawing this from somewhere and from classes I've been to in the last month, but does anyone have another motion or something they would like to start discussing?
I think, to be quite honest, at this point, I would just suggest that perhaps we, it sounds like we're not coming to a consensus on this right now. So I don't know if I need, or do you think we are?
Are we not?
Okay, maybe we are.
I think there's a consensus to move forward with this plan and make adjustments as we go, look for opportunities to save money where we are, direct staff to look at ways. If someone comes up with a way that they want to save money, let's go for it. But I haven't heard a proposal we're ready to go for otherwise.
Okay.
And this is the plan that was voted on in May or February 12th and has continued to stand.
You said the site work was part of it too. So I pulled Public Works, City Offices, Community Dispatch, Rec, site work numbers came out to 12.6. Again, I am not an expert, but I think if the consensus is that we're going to move forward with this plan, now my concern is the number. What our citizens can handle number-wise. Because if you go to the website under, I don't know if council has done this, but I have. Okay, on Jersey Village's website, there's a website, I'm sorry, you click on departments and go to finance, financial, and underneath financial it says bond proposals. And if you scroll down, there's like a little blurb about what we're up to up here. And then there's like a tax impact calculator. I think Miss Jennifer Brown put that together, which I appreciate. Huh?
Can you draw this into what is your question? What are you trying?
So I'm looking at, because I think part of the problem, the reason I bring this up is because part of the issue is everybody's focused on up to 24 million. But when you really break it down and what that really costs each individual household, appraised value, taxable value, exemptions, blah, 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 that's where our residents should be educated before it goes to a vote. I don't know how the city can encourage that. I'm happy to do it. But to me, I'm fine with going to 21 to the ballot. I think my fear is if this doesn't get out, we're not going to get it. It's the city's, it's not going to happen. That's my fear.
Are you talking about the fact that most people don't realize that with the bonds going on, like the average house in Jersey Village, they're looking at a $36 a year increase?
Wait, which one are you looking at? Down here on, okay. So the impact with homestead exemption at $350 in 2026? It's going to be an extra $265 a year added to the tax bill.
And that's the thing, is like we're talking about $265.
So that's $22 per month.
Yes.
To me, that's not a lot of money, and somebody else it might be, but part of the issue here when I talk to citizens, and I've been sitting down with a lot of them, is they had no idea that this was even here. And we need, if we're seriously about to go after and say, okay, look, we're going to commit to this thing, we're ready to go, We've got to make sure citizens understand this because that number is very intimidating. It's intimidating to me. This is important to me. And I think that a lot of our citizens need to see this.
And if you're over 65, it's significantly less. So like if you're over 65, it's 160? 180.
It's 180, which is 180 divided by 12. That's just an extra $15 a month on your property tax bill for up to $24 million bond issue. I'm just saying those are the facts.
And it goes down when we pay off the current COs.
It does.
So it's less, it's as the
But to be
decreases.
fair, Drew, yes, they go down when the first two bonds fall off. But at the same time, we know that the water and sewer bond, the proposed bond for $20 million, is for the next 5 years. And we know that behind that, years 6 through 10, that we've got roughly $44 million. So, you know, while bonds fall off, they're going to need more bonds for water and sewer. So, you know, it's kind of that naive approach to buying a car and saying, what's my monthly payment? Even more so here because your monthly payment, the monthly change to the homeowner is not going to remain just that additional $15 or whatever it is for the next 30 years. It's going to bump up when other bonds are needed, and other bonds will be needed.
But I also think it's important to point out the whole point, the concept with bonds is that it's not just the current people living there paying all at once for something that's going to be used for a significantly longer amount of time. It allows the people moving in to be paying for their portion of it, and the people that move away are no longer paying their portion of it. This is how cities do business. When I first started on council and had to go to that original meeting that we all have to go, it's not a meeting, it's like some kind of class or whatever. The guy that runs all the bonds for the state of Texas was there, came over because he knew Isabel Cato, and he goes, oh, Jersey Village. He goes, you're blessed to have Isabel. He goes, but do you know you're the only city that is, you're the only city we deal with that keeps making poor choices and not bonding? He goes, the pay-as-you-go is going to cripple you in the end. This is day one. And some guy that is clearly, this is all he does. He's he wore a bow tie. He looked very fancy. But for the state of Texas that is there, and he's talking about that, and it's like, we got to realize this, we need to take advantage of the tools we have to spread this out so it is not crippling our day-to-day costs. You know, bonding is important. We need to bond.
The motion I was waiting to see that I don't think's been made is
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion that we move ahead with the CO on the November bond, the COs as stated. Did I say it right?
Can I get clarity on that motion?
Please.
As stated, so for the amount of $24 million that's attached to the current COs, or no more than $24 million, or is that amount modifying?
Let's start with as is, as stated, no more than 24.
No second?
Can I make another motion? I'll make another motion that we put the CO bonds on the ballot with an adjusted price of $21 million.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Does this need discussion?
Can you modify that amount and reframe your motion to $21.62 million?
I would like to modify that amount to the stated number.
21.62.
And I will second that.
So what is your goal here? I mean, it sounds to me like you've made the motion to preserve the opportunity to do complete option A with no modification.
Oh, I'm not saying no modifications. As it is, it'll have to have modifications at 21.6 versus 24. So clearly there has to be some kind of modifications. I do believe there need to be modifications. And again, just because you bond for a number doesn't mean you have to spend it. And I do think we need to make modifications. I'm not going to sit here for hours tonight and talk about the size of a room. I think that's a conversation for another day and for people whose jobs that is, because I don't think that's our job. I believe in the future of Jersey Village. I think we need to move forward. I think we need this plan. And that's why for me, like the goal with the 21 point, I'm sorry, when I say 21.6, I mean the 21,611,025 as stated in the paperwork. I want to make sure I was clear on that. I think I was. But yeah, I'm more than happy to modify stuff as it goes, but I think that's the maximum price we need to borrow, and I think we can make it work.
I will only bring up that the difference between 21.62 and 24 was to cover financial charges and those things.
And I understand that. So for me, when I say 21.6, that means 17. Does that make sense? So that means that we're actually lowering cost to 17 to allow the difference. In my opinion, that's just how the math in my head works, because there's still costs. We're cutting the cost of this by making the maximum the project price, because there's still going to be bond costs. There's costs associated with that. So we're already going to have to make cuts. This is built-in cuts already for that. And again, that's a maximum price. That's if we choose to borrow all of it.
And let me add, there's a good chance we won't borrow all of it because our public works building hasn't been sold, so that might pay for itself here at this location.
I wouldn't count on it, but
is that no? Am I wrong?
I wouldn't. I mean, I personally wouldn't say what I think what it would cover, but I do believe that it will also make a dent in that number. I think you're 100% right. I think it would make a substantial dent in that number. But again, substantial is subjective, so it depends on who thinks what substantial is.
So potentially, no, but you guys know where I'm going with this in my head.
Absolutely, and I don't disagree with you, but yeah.
Any further discussion? Councilmember McCray has made a motion that we move forward in November with the adjusted CO election for $21.62 million. All those in favor? All those against? Raising against? You said oh, so I'm just making sure.
Yeah, I'm not ready yet.
Okay. I will vote in favor. Motion passes. Moving forward with this plan for a November CO election for 21.62. I feel like that closes up a lot of the City Hall. That also attacks the CO discussion. The other item is the whole point of the recess was to move to item J4, discuss and take appropriate action regarding the bond election for a municipal pool.
Can I get a clarification on something?
Yeah.
The other petition that will just move forward on its own. Did we make that motion?
No,
last night?
we made a motion earlier in this meeting.
We did,
earlier
right?
in this meeting, we moved to put that on the November.
I just wanted to make
ballot.
sure, because at this point it's all running together. But that was the yesterday early part of this meeting.
It was yesterday early part of this meeting, and that was item J3.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that was
We
clear.
placed it as is on. Yes.
The last night part of this. Yes, as is.
Exactly as the CO's written, we moved it forward.
That'll come back in August for the final.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Our resolution was only to stop staff
Because I had to clarify ordinance and resolution.
and redirect them to come back in August. So, on the topic of the pool and bonding in November, May, Does anyone have a motion? I have a suggestion.
I move that we move forward with a general obligation bond for the Jersey Village swimming pool and pump house, and in the amount of $6 million for the November election.
We have a motion for a Jersey Village swimming pool for $6 million on the November uniform election date. Do we have a second?
Can I ask a clarification on the motion before making a second? Would you be willing to modify to 6.5? Or can I ask that question? I'm looking at the spreadsheets. That's where I'm coming up with the half difference is.
I'm willing to amend after it's seconded.
I'll make a second.
Wait, I'm trying to follow what you're doing.
Okay.
So can I walk through what I asked Austin to pass along? So based on what I used as a basis for this spreadsheet was the Councilman Hunsaker reports, and then various pools in that similar style and vein, with a lap pool and maybe a secondary pool in some cases. Some pools that looked like the former Jersey Village swimming pool. I came up using the Councilman Hunsaker. I took their original cost, and then I used 7% effectively to go with an inflation rate to get effectively a cost for today. And from that, I added escalation allowance, contingency, and design fees, much like Councilman Hunsaker did, to get a probable cost for 2026 with these. Didn't include buildings other than a pump house. For all of these buildings, I estimated $350,000 for a pump house based on conversations I've had with pool people and I think staff. That could be high. All these are purposely maybe leaning towards the high end because I'd rather plan to spend more and spend less. And then with, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other pools, I was inspired by looking at pools that Councilman Hunsaker and Landmark is now they've gobbled up all the other pool builders effectively in the Houston area, including Progressive, who did some design work for us earlier. And these are other pools that they've built probably since 2017. So using that, I came up with the same numbers. I tried to estimate what their cost would be if they were built before 2024. I tried to use some construction inflation numbers to get to what they might be in 2024, and then added the inflation rate to get them to 2025 costs. So then we're dealing with equal footing. The one thing that I did not do was effectively with these project costs on the ones that have already been built, I did not, they probably already included a design that was 10% of their costs. So if we wanted to take off $500,000 each on each of those pools, you could probably get that, and that may lower the average lower. But the median was about $7 million, and the average of these pools was about $7 million. Now, some were pretty high end, and I left links in there for people to go look at them. The most recent pool it looked like that was built was in Gillette, Wyoming. Funny thing about that, their engineers estimated it was going to cost somewhere around $3 million, and they were wrong by $2 million. It cost them $5.1. Now, construction in Gillette, Wyoming probably is a little more expensive than it is in Houston, Texas. So through all that, that's where I got the numbers. They range from 5.8 roughly to $8.4 million. and that's without buildings. I'm happy to entertain any questions on my brief amount of research.
My concern here is just I think that as you creep up on the potential pool bond, you're creeping towards more opposition, and I think that we understand that if we do a pool bond for $5 million with the intent that that gets us as much of a pool as we can get for $5 million, with the understanding, the implicit agreement that, you know, maybe with the sale of other assets within the city, the property on the south side of 290 or whatever, you know, the city's going to have to come up with some money to make this work. But I think there is a goal here to hit a sweet spot with voters and to get the support. And so I do have some concern creeping it up to 6 or 6 1/4 or 6 1/2. I would, you know, I would be in favor of this at a bond of $5 million. And I think, again, you know, it's all about building a community appropriate pool, and, you know, we're not West U. So we can still build nice, but you know, that those costs from Councilman Hunsaker, I just think we can do better.
Well, given that, and I don't disagree, I was leaning towards 5 yesterday, even 5 1/2, using the numbers associated to rebuild the same design as our current pool, minus 2.5 meters to make it 25 yards instead of meters, would still, based on this estimate, which I admit is probably on the higher side, was $6 million. 6.00.
And we've already had the conversations repeatedly with Councilman Hunsaker suggesting not to do the same pool, the same shape, because of hygiene purposes, that it's not efficient, it's not as safe as other pools from a water safety, water clarity. I don't know what else to say. I don't know how else to explain that. But the two-pool concept.
You mean having a separate baby pool, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And so not having the old-fashioned Z shape. And so to me, that's not an option. And so that's why, I mean, I get it with the 5, but I think it's going to be too low. And I think we're getting to the point where we're talking literal nickels and dimes here. So
the cost difference between the two is about $400,000 or $500,000.
It's not, and also when you're looking at the bonding, the difference in the bonding and the effect of that, I think the difference between $5 million and $6.5 million is very small when you look at the impact for your tax statement.
Any further discussion? Courtney, can you repeat the dollar amount?
I have it moved for a GO bond in the amount of $6 million in November for the municipal pool.
It was amended to 6.5.
Yeah, 6.5. No further discussion. Okay. All those in favor of a GO bond in November for $6.5 million? Hey, it's all 4 anyway. I don't get to vote this time. Motion passes. Austin, are there any areas of these topics that you need further direction?
I don't think so. We'll work with the council and the financial advisor on the bonds. We'll move for the August 18th meeting, and we are continuing to move forward with design of option A.
Do you all foresee us needing to meet before then?
I do not. I would encourage everyone that the August meeting will have tax rate information, We will have the bonds that must be called on that day. If you have recommendations, changes you want to make to the budget or any of this that needs to be brought ahead of time, you can always email that to the city secretary for her to email to all of council. But don't surprise your neighbor. We've seen that before.
So with respect to that, with respect to modifications to the budget, I mean, and I've had this conversation with Austin about, right now the budget has some salary increases, some additional headcount, a lot of items which I think that we need to reduce the expense, just given the amount of revenues that we're getting from sales tax, giving prospectively what the property tax revenues and all other revenue sources. I just think as a city, as a government, we need to limit what we spend. I did say to Austin that while, I as one person could, one council member could go through and do the budget, I do believe that he, as the city manager, has a better handle on the day-to-day, how to prioritize. Do we spend more money on something in the police department? Do we spend more money on IT? Do we spend more money on, Parks and Rec? And for me to cut, 500,000 or 10% of the budget, I can justify it, but I believe that Austin, as city manager, speaking to his department heads, is in a better place to do that. To which Austin agreed. And so my difficulty is after following the budget meeting of July the 11th, where we talked about the extra head count, and we talked about this, and Austin's response is, well, I need instruction from council, which means as difficult as it was this evening for us to come to some decisions on the pool and the city campus and the et cetera, we need to have those discussions in order to give Austin direction, or just give him global direction. I need you to reduce the budget by some magic number, whether that's 10%. The point being is that the budget, we've got budget creep. It happens every year, every year. It's just typical government, and there's a reason. A big component. There's a reason why the city of Jersey Village is voted one of the best places to work, because the employees are treated very, very well. But at the same time, we're running a city, we're running an operation. We have to be aware of expenses, so we have got to figure out how to reel this in. It's real easy for me as a new councilman to say, well, I'm new on council, and I'm still just learning the ropes, so I just need to get along and let the budget ride. But that's just another year of budget creep. So, I would suggest that council collectively make the directive to Austin to go back to that budget and figure out, because we've lost the sales tax revenue from the one concrete manufacturer, concrete company, et cetera. So we're not having as much of the sales tax revenue, and I think that collectively as council, we need to instruct Austin to go back and show me that you can make some legitimate cuts by eliminating things or delaying it to the next year, et cetera, et cetera. So
we just had the budget meeting, and at the end of the budget meeting, this exact conversation was had, and what we talked about there was, how do we direct Austin to go back? And many things get cut before the budget is presented. And Austin asked, tell me a dollar amount, give me a percentage, give a service you want to cut, direct how you would like to affect the budget. We can do that. Sharpen your pencils and just do a little better is not a quantifiable goal. And so
I'm just trying to understand, is he trying to suggest that we meet to direct? I'm confused, because I wasn't at the budget meeting, so I'm trying to understand what
I'm saying here is, if you want to see change in the budget, propose an amount, a percentage. We're here to meet. We can talk about the budget.
I'd like the city manager to try to cut the budget by 15%.
could be wrong, but I don't think budget discussion is on our agenda tonight.
It's on the public hearing.
Yeah, we had a hearing about the budget.
Because it's technically yesterday's
Yep.
agenda.
So, at least for formality, I'll reopen.
So, just so we're all on the same page on
F1.
the dais. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you. You want expenses, or you're suggesting we look to cut expenses by roughly $2 million from 17.04, 85% of 17.4 million.
Correct. I'll admit that may be aspirational, but I do think there's something in that budget that can be eliminated or delayed, and we just need to start making headway.
I think it also depends on how you're looking at the budget too, at least for me.
Hold on, Connie. Courtney, did you get the percentage? The motion is to direct the city manager to reduce the budget by 15%. Across the board. You holding that to general fund?
Yeah, 15% collectively. That it doesn't mean that every department, it just means collectively 15%.
Collective drop of 15% across the budget.
We're just
Anyone
talking
have a
general
second?
fund, right?
I just asked general fund, and no, we're talking across all funds 15% as a collective expenses. So does that motion have a second?
I'm going to need more information.
So it does not have a second unless you want to change the amount. There's not
What
a,
page should we be looking at? I am so lost right
there's
now.
not a page. We're talking about the budget as a whole. Go ahead and ask your questions.
So if you're talking about budget as a whole, not just general fund, what all does that mean?
Well, what I'm asking, generally speaking, is that all of the expenses, so all of the revenue sources are allocated in the budget in the individual funds, and particularly a lot of the expenses associated with salary. So what I'm saying is we need to reduce those expenses as much as possible, and I'm just working to try to reduce the budget, because otherwise we could have a 20-hour meeting going through everything line by line by line, and my impression is that that's not what people want to do. And the mayor said, well, come up with a percentage, so I came up with a percentage. And if somebody says, well, Simon, 15, boy, that's harsh, we could cut the budget by 10%, or we could cut the general fund budget by 10%, whatever it is, I'd be willing to listen to that.
A percentage, a dollar amount, a service. What do you want to cut out of the budget?
What does 15% look like? I mean, that's staff reduction, correct? I mean, is that significant?
So
I don't know. Is that golf course? What is
15% would be from the general fund would be roughly $3 million. Yeah, you're looking at a large number of staff, I would assume. I've had 30 seconds to think about that, but
yeah, that's what I'm just okay.
If you're talking 15% collectively, including capital projects, as the budget was filed, that would be $17.5 million.
17 million?
$17 million.
That is
$17.5
including
million.
capital projects, and so I caution you to clarify your suggestion of 15% across the board. It's a very broad motion.
Okay. So, and see, this is where I need feedback from city manager and director of finance. What I'm most interested in doing is, quite frankly, I'm not interested in cutting the budgets for police, fire, EMS. I understand the budgets for capital improvements, and I'm fine with those. It's really the general fund, the city staff, the extra people, the excessive salaries, the excessive Parks and Rec. Those are the things where I believe that we can do better than what we're doing. And that's where I would be looking for the city manager to say, I really can talk to my department heads. We could do this, we could do that, we could eliminate this position, and we can, come up with a 10%, or we can save the city $1 million or whatever it is. And I'm happy to spend time one-on-one with you, Austin, and go through everything. But I just think we need to do better, because we have that never-ending problem with budget creep, and every year it's just more and more and more expensive, and we have yet to solve and are not yet solving the problem on the revenue side, which is to generate more sales tax.
Is there a service people are willing to cut? I mean, because I'm thinking it's got to be a service, right?
At 15%, you're talking departments.
If you're cutting, 15.
Fire?
If you're
He took police and fire and dispatch off the table, so you're trying to cut $3 million out of roughly an $8 million on the $8 million budget. You're talking whole departments.
If you had to reduce the budget by $500,000, Austin, what would you eliminate?
Services or people. I can't tell you which ones right now. I haven't had time to look at that kind of level, but it'd be services and people.
I also would caution that lots of staff watches these meetings, and you have to be cautious and careful about how you go about saying this person or that position. At the end of the day, you have to have the discussion. You do have to have the discussion. So just a note that staff does watch it.
Well, from what my experience here, which isn't as much as everyone else maybe, but I will say, from what I see, police, fire, and capital projects are big chunks of our budget. And so when you say you're not going to cut police or fire, then are you suggesting capital projects from the budget? No, or are you talking about like firing people?
If we have to eliminate positions, I'm just asking, what can we do? We spent X hours on the 11th going through the line items of the budget, but following that, going through the line items, we never had a thoughtful and meaningful discussion about where is there any opportunity to reduce the expenses the city's going to incur in the next fiscal year. And that's either the discussion that I'm looking to have, or because all I'm hearing from the city manager at the moment is this is the bare bones budget. There's nothing that we can cut, and I don't believe that. That's my position.
Okay, we're all looking at the same thing. What do you cut?
Here you go. I will take away $260,000 from capital improvements, taking away the donor wall and picnic area of $100,000, sidewalk, because we already have money outside of capital funds for sidewalk and street panel replacement. That totals $260,000 right there. That's a start. I'm on
what page?
In the budget book. I'm on page 101. Don't necessarily haven't put much thought into those. Those are numbers that I'd like to discuss them.
But I thought he
have a
said not
motion on the
capital.
floor already, don't we? Are we?
Not a motion. I'm sorry. I already do have a motion on the floor. I apologize.
Yes.
Oh, so
his motion never got a second.
Can you repeat the motion?
That's what I was trying to figure out. Are we still working with his motion, or did it die for lack of a second?
It died for lack of a second. Never got a second. They started to have some discussion. It never got a second.
Okay, thank you.
I think they're trying to formulate some ideas of a motion on where they would cut the budget, or a motion to direct the city manager to cut the budget of a certain amount. But But at the end of the day, it's a service or percentage or a dollar amount, and I haven't heard one that people are going to get behind.
At the end of the day, when you have, as one public commenter eloquently put it, without comparing to other cities, when you have 70 to 75% of your funds and your expenses going to pay resources, when you cut staff, if that's the way you go, you're going to lose services. Or if you cut services, you may cut staff. Either way, it's hat in hand, and it's 75% of our budget. So I think we need to be very aware of that and start with what are wants in here and not needs. Wants, and I'll catch that by saying, if one of the goals of a city, my goals are provide outstanding infrastructure and emergency services and build a strong community. If they don't do one of those things, maybe they're wants and not needs.
I actually agree with you. I get very nervous about cutting big stuff like that.
So, unless there's a motion to amend the budget, I will remind you that this is not the be-all, end-all. We are not adopting a budget in this meeting. We only had a public hearing, and you still have at least 20 days to the next meeting, but time beyond that to adopt or amend the budget or bring forth a proposal of how you would cut a service, a percentage, or a dollar amount. Those are all options that you have, and that doesn't stop at the end of this meeting.
Simon, can I ask you a question? Like, when you, and you may not want to answer this, but when you're talking about salaries and people, can you elaborate on that for me so I can understand what you're suggesting?
On staff that we get best quality people and we get value for the salaries, the compensation they receive. At the same time, I also think that for a lot of the staff, the compensation package is it's a very good package, and I'm not sure that we're really getting the value out of those employees or the productivity or the results. And unfortunately, but due to a sensitivity, I don't want to point out specifics, but there are plenty of staff that I see that I think, okay, they're earning a good living and they're providing great service, and the city is very fortunate to have them. And then there's other staff that I see where I'm like, man, what are we really getting out of this?
So if I were, have you, let's say you found a position that you're talking about. I mean, is that a position that you've emailed or discussed with the city manager and to quantify that, or is this just something that you're coming up with, that you feel or that you've seen?
Well, no, I haven't had that specific discussion, and part of that was, go back to the original point, the person running the city best understands where the city is spending money and also understands that if out of this budget, out of the general fund budget, if you had to cut $50,000, where would you find it? If you had to cut $500,000, where would you find it? And I have faith that Austin, with his knowledge of the city, would make the best decisions in reducing by that, by whatever amount is selected. If asked, could I go through and say, I think we can reduce here, we can reduce there? Yeah, absolutely. But the difficulty, as I discussed with Austin in our email exchange, is that me alone saying we need to eliminate this position is only one person. So he's not getting a direction from council. And unless we're all willing to sit down and have what would likely prove to be a very lengthy conversation over how do we squeeze another $500,000 or $1 million or $1.5 million out of this budget, out of the expenses, I think the best route is to give some general direction to Austin to say, if you were to reduce the budget expenses in the general fund by $500,000, where would you take it? If you were to increase it from $500,000 to $750,000, where would you take it? I think that would be probably the most efficient way to do it. And hopefully he would come back and not say, I've squeezed every last dime out and there's no room. Hopefully he could come back and say, just like they do in private business, we can't afford it. And so something's got to happen. And if it means whatever it means, it just has to happen. So
I'm happy to have a meeting if we need a meeting, and happy to sit and talk for 20 hours if we need to have it. But I think the last 20 minutes has shown very clearly we can't even agree a motion to tell them how much we're going to cut because no one's willing to say, sorry, you did bring up a percentage, but it didn't get a second. How's another meeting going to be productive in reducing it?
Yeah, no, I get that. I don't feel comfortable. I would never feel comfortable just throwing out a percentage because to me that's a struggle to. I have a hard time quantifying that. Simon, are you asking for? Are you wanting him to come up with like some ideas or scenarios? Like this is an idea of if we were to cut $200,000 out of the budget, this is where it would come from. If we were to cut $300,000, I'm just trying to understand. Is that what you're wanting? Like ideas or options, or to see things like that? Because that makes me think. I don't know that we would need. Do we need a very specific directive on something like that? Is it something we're just wanting to see?
We would need some kind of goal of how much you're wanting them to cut. I think that would be reasonable.
I'm just trying to understand, how he's what he's wanting presented, because I get what he's saying. The fact, all of us sitting down and going line by line, no, thank you. But I do agree. The person that's most qualified to do that would be this person here. I also think we should also understand that that's part of what the budget process is that they sit down and do these things, and they have multiple rounds. But to Simon's credit, I don't know that I personally don't know when council has ever directed the city to cut costs. Has that ever happened? I don't know.
Yeah, that's happened while I was on council.
And that's what I'm asking. So if that's never happened, should we look at scenarios for it? I don't know.
Austin, how many budget meetings occur without council?
At least a dozen. And not everybody all in the same room, but individually with finance and me and department heads and and everybody in the room. I'd say there's a dozen different meetings, and that doesn't include all the sidebar conversations and emails and everything else. If I've said it already this meeting, I'll do whatever council wants, and I just need direction. I don't think it's useful for my time to come up with scenarios of this would be $200,000 worth of cuts and this would be $500,000 cuts and this would be $800,000 of cuts. I'm trying to write $4.5 million worth of grants to get non-property tax revenue into the city. If council legitimately wants to see the budget reduced by a dollar amount, just tell me what the dollar amount is and we'll make it happen, and we'll tell you what it's going to be. But I can guarantee you that we can't take police, fire, and dispatch off the table. They're the biggest pieces of the budget. We have to look at everything.
And we talked about in the May meeting that the entire city works as a team. I also can't. I would love to cut budget. I agree with being conservative. I've always talked about fiscal conservativity, but my problem, I couldn't come up with a dollar amount or a budget because we don't know what the revenue is at. We don't have the numbers yet. And if there was suddenly a shortfall, then yeah, I'd probably come back with hey, I'm not okay with that tax rate. Go figure it out and let's cut it.
And if there's a tax rate that the council wants us to hit, we'll get those numbers in a few days. We'll be running the calculations, and we can hit a tax rate. I mean, that's another option. But I need some kind of solid direction on what y'all want to see if you want to see something different than what's been presented.
I would also like to say I feel that something is, the emails I get as a council person range from very strange to complaints about the street sweeper hasn't been by recently. The bathroom at this park is not open. It just, it's all over the place. And I start thinking, if we're going to start cutting stuff, how many, what emails are we picking and choosing? I mean, the response is well, that was what was chosen to be cut. I don't know. I don't know how to answer those things because I wouldn't know how to pick what to cut and what not to cut.
Austin, you said that if it was requested that we had to reduce the budget, the expenses in the budget by a substantial dollar amount, $500,000 or more, that you're saying that you could not do that without making budget reductions in police, fire, and EMS?
I'm saying we would have to look at everything. Yeah. Everything should be on the table if we're going to have to make budget reductions. We all work as a team. If the streets aren't good, the police and fire can't get down the road. We have to look at everything. To arbitrarily take 60% of the budget off the table is just not responsible.
Okay.
I mean, we can go through it and take out apparel and what was some other things, travel and all that. We can poke around and start pulling some of that, but I don't see how that's going to make a dent in what you're the kind of change that you're trying to make. And I can see what Austin's saying. As far as everybody's working together at the same time, it's not just plucking here and there. At least is that what you're saying?
Right. Yeah. It's all a team, and everybody here comes to work with a job to do. And when people aren't performing, we get rid of them. So if you see people that you feel are not performing, let's have that conversation. I can look into those things, but if I just need a direction. Go sharpen your pencils is not a direction. Prepare all these scenarios for all these different things. It's not a great use of my time. But if council says we need to cut services, percentage, dollar amount, or to reach a certain tax rate, great. We'll make it happen.
Any other motions? Meeting adjourned.